Okay, there are four things that you want to consider when you're evaluating a note, and I'm going to walk you through each one of them. The first one is the collateral itself. The second one is, I don't know why this is not advancing. It worked when we practiced. There we go. Okay, the second one is the note, the promissory note. The third is the payor. You want to know who's making payments and are they able to make payments. And the fourth one is, this is not working. I don't know why. If you have any suggestions, Matthew, I don't know why. Okay, now it's working.
Oh, looks like the mouse was going on to that other screen. Try to keep it on the presentation view one.
Okay, I thought that I had. So, sorry about that. So we're going to look at the collateral, we're going to look at the note, and we're going to look at the payor. And last but not least, we want to check and see what the yield would be. If you're holding it, you want to know, is it the kind of return that you want? Or if you're going to flip it, can you make enough money to flip it? So let's walk through each one of those items. So when somebody calls me up and they have a note that they would like a quote on, the first question that I ask is, what is the loan to value? The most important thing when I look at a note is how much equity is in that property. Now, mind you, as an advanced technique, if there isn't a lot, we can do a partial, and there's other things that we can do. But in general, I want to know how much equity is in the property. And to determine that, what we're going to look at is the loan to value, or commonly known as the LTV. And the LTV, it is a measure of how much financing is on the property, okay? So it's the total balances of all the liens divided by the current fair market value of the property. Now, there's two ways to look at this. If there's a first and second, we're going to look at all the liens. But if we're just buying the first, we may just put in the value of the first, okay? So if we have a $100,000 property and there's a first of 80, then our loan to value, as far as we are concerned, would be 80%, okay? So let's look at this here. Let's say that you have this property that's worth $100,000. And let's say there is a $60,000 mortgage on it, okay? Very simply, our loan to value is 60%, okay? But what we're really interested in is what's left. We want to know how much equity is in the property, okay? And obviously, the remaining equity would be 40%. So this tells us that there's $40,000 of extra value that is protecting this $60,000 mortgage. Another way to look at that is if the value of the property dropped, it could drop by 40% and you could still sell the property for enough to cover what is owed on it, okay? So the more equity, first of all, the safer the deal, okay? And the more equity, the more opportunity there is for extra profit in the event that the borrower defaulted and you wound up taking the property over and having to resell it, okay? So the loan to value allows us to see how much equity is protecting the balance that is owed on the loan. However, you know that we buy at a discount, okay? So there's another thing that I sometimes use instead of loan to value, and that is investment to value. And that allows us to see how much equity is protecting the actual amount of our investment, okay? So think of it like this. When I buy a note, I don't usually just want to get my investment back. I want to make sure I get the entire amount that is owed. So I'm going to look at my loan to value. But sometimes there are notes that maybe the loan to value is a little questionable, but it's such a great note that I ask myself, you know what? how risky is this as far as the actual amount that I'm putting out? So in that case, as a backup, I'm going to look at the investment to value. So the investment to value is simply the total amount that you invest in the note, including your expenses, divided by the current fair market value of the property. Now, I want to add something here. If the property has sold within the last year, so if the note has not been seasoned or they have not been making payments for over a year, then as a general rule of thumb, you always want to use the sale price of the property. Okay, but if the note is seasoned for more than a year, then you want to find out, what is the real value now? Has it appreciated? So what that keeps you from doing is having someone go in and they buy it. They buy a property for really cheap, and then all of a sudden they're telling you it's worth $100,000 when maybe it's really not worth $100,000. So just as a general rule of thumb, if the property is sold in the last year, use the sale price. Okay. So let's take a look at this. We've got our $100,000 property. You've got a $60,000 note. If you buy that note for $45,000, then your investment to value, very simply, is 45%. Okay. So this tells you that the value of the property could drop by 55%. And you could still, if you got that property back at a sale, you could still sell the property and at least get all of your investment back. Okay, so I hope you see the difference. Loan to value is a measure of how to protect whatever is owed on the note. Investment to value is a measurement that allows you to see how much equity protects your actual investment. Okay.